Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason. Speaking to you in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And if you notice, I'm has got some new merch today from my friend Ryan from Real Talks with Ryan. I got a shirt here. This is he just started putting some merch out. He recently, I think, got monetized. He also changed his name. He used to be Race O's Fan 89. And I actually had him on my channel not too long ago, a couple months ago, on my 20 questions series, and his name at the time was Raves O's Fan 89. He changed it since then, so now it's no longer that name that I have on my channel, but it was Real Talks with Ryan. So yeah, I love that he's changed the name. I think it's a better name overall. The best name he's gotten so far. Is like the third name change he's had. And so happy he got the new name change. He now put out some merch. So I got his shirt here, which Real Talks with Ryan. I also got a hat with his logo there. So really like it. Nice shirt. I love blue, so I got the blue colors. Love it. Looks great. Feels good. Definitely check his channel out, Real Talks with Ryan. He's been a good friend of mine now on YouTube for a couple years. And like I said, I have him on my channel a couple times. I've been on his channel. And yeah, so glad I could support him and get some of his merchandise. I think he has 3 different shirt designs. I got this one. I really like the logo on here, so looks really good. And I'm talking about Ryan. He won my contest for predicting the Oscar winners, and he came in first place. So he gets to name a series for me to rank, some kind of ranking series. Anyways, and his choice was to pick movies from the 1980s. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting because I already did a whole series on ranking all my 100 favorite movies. So I've covered a lot of movies from different, decades. But he specifically wanted to, I guess, zone in on the 80s period, which I'm guessing maybe is like favorite period of movies or something. So I was like, okay. And then I was thinking, okay, what do I do with this? How many movies do I rank? How far can I go on this? It's funny. I asked Ryan and he said, how about do 20 movies and some honorable mentions? And I was like, 20 movies, I can do better than that. I can do a better ranking series than just 20 movies. So I come up with my 100 favorite movies from the 1980s. And this is for Ryan from Real Talk Movies for winning my contest. So hope you enjoy this, Ryan, and let's get to the list. All right, getting to number 100 on my list. Definitely my list, I picked a lot of movies that I have a lot of nostalgia for. Like I remember, watching these for the first time as maybe as a kid, and I was a big fan of it as a kid. And some of these I haven't seen for a while, so I put on my list even though I haven't seen in a while. But again, it's hard to come up with 100 movies. There's quite a bit of movies that come up, even just for one decade. So I kind of put in some hidden gem movies. I really wanted to put in some movies I think people have never maybe heard of or seen before and want to recommend them. So anybody watching this hopefully can get some recommendations out of it and check some movies they haven't seen. So at number 100, I have a movie called Best of the Best. This came out in 1989. This is basically a martial arts kind of action, not action, but martial arts movie. And it's an action movie, I guess I should say. It's a martial arts action movie. And if you know me, I'm a big fan of martial arts action movies. I have quite a bit of them in my collection. And this is definitely one that I came across on TV as a kid. Again, as a kid, I just would just, click through the channels. And if I found an action movie, I was going to watch it. That's basically what I did as a kid. So I discovered a lot of 80s action movies, actually. I found out when I'm going through my list. Like a lot of these were found out by watching on TNT or TBS or USA. I feel like those are the 3 main channels that would show these kind of action movies from the 80s period. So I'd always come across something like this. And I go, there's some fighting going on. There's some shooting, whatever. I'm going to watch this. I want to see what happens. I love action movies. Anyway, so this is definitely one I came across, on one of those channels. And I was like, oh, okay, people are fighting. They're martial arts fighting in it. Okay, I'm hooked in, right away. It might not be a good movie, to be honest. I haven't seen it for quite a long time. So I can't say it's like the greatest movie, but I guess I have enough nostalgia. I remember seeing this movie and thought, oh, this is really good. definitely a kind of a favorite of mine as a kid. Anytime this came on TV, I would watch it when I was younger. But basically, the movie stars Eric Roberts and has some other actors in it. They are there's a James Earl Jones, I should say. James Earl Jones is one of the main characters. He's putting together a like U.S. Taekwondo team and going to have them compete against international Taekwondo teams, anyways. And in this movie, they only do with one though. That's Korea. South Korea evidently has like the greatest Taekwondo team as very renowned. And so James Earl Jones wants to put together the best fighters he can come up with. So he has like this big tournament, kind of more towards the beginning of the movie. All these different fighters compete in this kind of tournament, and he picks out like 4 or 5 of them to compete in this international contest, basically. And most of the movie is him kind of coaching them. He's kind of James Earl Jones, kind of like their coach and whatnot, and more a motivator than anything. But he's somewhat, having them train and trying to, motivate them and how to fight this really, possibly beaten team. The Koreans never lose and all this. Anyway, so like the first part of the movie, they're in this tournament, and I think we get some pretty good, so most of the action is like just, like the Karate Kid type, tournament fighting, but there's some pretty good stuff there. Eric Roberts, I think, is good in the lead. The only member that doesn't fit is Chris Penn. If you know, Chris Penn was Sean Penn's brother, who passed away a little while ago, but he was not really an action guy. He wasn't really a martial arts guy. And he does not fit in this movie. He ends up being part of this 5-man member team, I think. And he does not look like, he's a little overweight. He doesn't look good in action scenes. He doesn't look like he knows karate that well. It's a weird choice there. But the other members are really good at karate and look good in the movie. There's even like this barroom brawl in the movie that's like a big action sequence. But then at the end of the movie, it's all about fighting the Koreans, and they have some of it's hand-to-hand fighting. I think some of it's like seeing who can, break the most bricks in a row or something. It's that kind of stuff. It's kind of that kind of, and who's better with weapons, and there's all that kind of stuff anyways. And that's kind of the end, is this big epic showdown between, America and the Koreans, and America is the real underdogs. Anyways, again, it's probably a little cheesy. It's 80s. This came out 89, or at the end of the 80s. I still think it's one of, if you like action movies, you like martial arts, it's one worth, I think, checking out and seeing, in my opinion. So that's what I got. The best of the best here at number 100, just barely cracking into my list. All right, number 99 is another somewhat obscure movie. I don't think a lot of people probably have heard of or seen. It's not one I've ever heard anybody talk about. It's called The Dream Team. This also came out in 1989, and this is a comedy. Again, not a real well-known one, but really good cast. Stars Michael Keaton, Christopher Lloyd, and Peter Boyle, kind of some of the main characters. But they play kind of basically mental patients. They're like in a mental institute, and there's a guy who's like kind of their caretaker, who's like, their therapist, whatever, and is trying to help them make their lives better. And they got these issues they're trying to get through and do therapy and all this. So he takes them out to a baseball game in New York City, and after the game, the caretaker, the doctor, comes across a crime scene and gets beat up and gets basically put in a coma, has to go in the hospital. And I think there's 4 mental patients. There's those 3 plus another guy, but the 4 mental patients now are on the loose in New York City because their caretaker is in the hospital. And so they're trying to figure out where their caretaker is and try to go. And I think the people that committed a crime are also trying to look for him because he's a witness to the crime, anyway, so it's all that, but it's mostly a comedy with these, 4 mental patients kind of causing trouble because, they're doing things that are very, strange, and, they're very, not good in social situations. I haven't seen this movie in a while, but I put it on the list because I remember watching this. My dad, I think, knew about this movie, and we watched it together one time when I was younger, and I thought it was a pretty funny movie overall. Again, great cast. Christopher Lloyd, I think, was probably the funniest of the group. My favorite memory is that towards the beginning of the movie, Christopher Lloyd is like, they're in the mental institute, and Christopher Lloyd has kind of this white lab coat thing going on, and he's got like a clipboard, and he's going around talking to these different patients. And you think he's like a psychiatrist or a doctor, checking in on the patients. And then you find out that he's actually also a mental patient, and he's just, that's part of his thing, is he, you know, tries to, you know, pretend like he's, you know, somewhat authority and tries to help other people, but he really can't help anybody. And I think the real doctor's like, I've told you many times, you can't do this. You can't be going around pretending like you're, you know, a doctor or a psychiatrist, you know, and you can help people, you know. He's also very like anal retentive kind of thing, where he's very overly organized and everything has to be in the right place and stuff like that. And he goes into a bar when they get, you know, separated. He goes into a bar and he starts trying to organize the drinks on the bar, and he gets into a fight or something, gets kicked out. It's stuff like that I think is actually pretty funny in the movie. And again, it's been a while since I've seen it. Don't know if it holds up as well, but I put it in here just because I came across this and went, I want to put this in my top 100. I want people to hear about it maybe and check it out. I think it's a fun movie to check out at some point anyway. So it's called The Dream Team, here at number 99 on my list. Number 98 is definitely a childhood favorite that I haven't seen in a while, and that is Short Circuit. From 1986. If you don't know this movie, it's, you know, I hear people talk about this movie, but man, it was a fun movie. It's a movie I really enjoyed. Again, I came across it on TV, I think, as a kid, and really enjoyed it. I should say I was born in '83, so a lot of these movies came out when I was born, but of course I was too young to see them, so I didn't see them till on TV in the '90s. Is basically where I caught most of these movies, probably on TV at some point, and this was one of those. And Short Circuit is about this robot who's built by the military. He looks a little bit like Wall-E from the Wall-E movie. He's kind of like that. But he's kind of built by the military to be kind of this, you know, weapon of destruction kind of thing. But then the robot gets hit by lightning, and he kind of becomes self-aware of himself, and he doesn't want to be a military weapon, so he escapes the military complex. And he comes across Ali Sheedy and Steve Guttenberg, kind of the main characters, and he wants to hide out from the military. The military is looking for this robot, and he's called Number 5. And it's such a fun character. The Number 5, I thought they call him Johnny or something like that. Maybe it's just Number 5, but the voice actor does a great job. It's a really funny character, really likable, and you really are pulling for, you know, this robot from, you know. Well, he comes across a scientist, I think, called played by Fisher Stevens, and here's the most. It's controversial though, so I wonder if they've probably tried to cancel this movie. But Fisher Stevens plays a guy from India, from, you know, the country of India, and he is not Indian in real life. So it's definitely one of those weird moments where you're watching it and you're like, this guy's not Indian. Why is he playing Indian? It's something you couldn't do today. I don't know why at the time. I guess they thought, oh, no one will notice or care that he's not Indian. Of course, now we look at it and we go, oh my gosh, like that's a bad idea. You can't have someone pretending to be another race. You know, that's cancelable culture type thing. So I'm sure Fisher Stevens has gotten some slack for that, but it's too bad because I actually remember really loving this movie as a kid. I haven't seen it in a while, but I want to put it on here just because when I saw this, I was like, I gotta put this on my list. It's such a kind of cool hidden gem movie that I don't think people talk about. That I was like, definitely you should check this out. Short Circuit. It's more of a comedy, you know, with this robot, which is really cool. Again, I think a really cool idea for a movie, and worked really well. I remember as a kid anyway. So yeah, Short Circuit, number 98 on my list. Number 97, I'm going with a action western called Young Guns. Young Guns came out in 1988, and this is, yeah, like I said, a Western movie, a lot of action. It has a really good cast again. Stars Emilio Estevez, which Emilio Estevez, you might not think much of him now, but of course, back in the 80s, he was a really big deal. He was in a lot of big movies, and in the 90s. He kind of disappeared after the 90s, I would say, as an actor, but he was in a number of good movies here, including this one. I think is one of his best roles. He plays Billy the Kid, as you know, the famous outlaw. And I think he's actually really good here as Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid's such a great, you know, character as an outlaw, famous outlaw. But him and some other guys kind of, well, they're kind of hired by this rancher, but the rancher gets killed by somebody who wants his ranch kind of thing. And so then they form kind of this, they get deputized, I guess. And so they go around trying to catch the murderers, but then Billy Kid is, you know, he just murders them himself because and he's such a good like quick gun kind of guy. And so then they kind of become outlaws because he's murdering these people who murdered this rancher, and so they're kind of on the run from the law. They're trying to catch up to him, and some bounty hunters also trying to get him as well. A lot of fun shootout scenes. I think the fun Western overall. I remember the ending has this huge shootout. It's a bit unrealistic, but it's a fun action scene. But like I said, Emilio Estevez good. Charlie Sheen's also in the movie, which is cool to see two brothers. If you don't know, Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen are brothers, so it's cool. One of those moments where the two brothers get to act together. You also have Kiefer Sutherland in here. You have Lou Diamond Phillips as part of this, kind of this group of outlaws. Yeah, again, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember this is another one of those movies I came across at some point as a kid and thought, oh wow, I wasn't always a big Western guy, but I love action, so I was like, so I thought the shootouts were really well done anyway, so I put it on this list. If you haven't seen it, definitely check out Young Guns. I think there's also Young Guns 2. I didn't put it on my list because I thought, I don't know if I need two Young Gun movies on here, and I don't remember which one's better or which one, how they're different, but I just thought, I got to put one of them to kind of represent the two movies anyway. So Young Guns at number 97. Number 96, I have Santa Claus. This movie came out in 1985, I think. Let me see if I see my notes here. Yeah, 85. And obviously, what is this movie about? It's about Santa Claus. And you know, again, it's a movie that's kind of disappeared amongst the big Christmas movies. And I don't know if it just didn't make a big enough impact, but this is one I loved as a kid. And I think I must have had this on VHS or something like that. Like maybe my parents taped this off of a VHS, because I used to watch this a lot because I had like the VHS tape, like maybe taped off a TV or something like that. And I absolutely love this. I'm a I'm a big fan of Christmas movies, and yeah, as a kid especially, and even today. But so this is somewhat of a more obscure Christmas movie, but I guess again I have so much nostalgia for the movie, so I had to put it on my list. And definitely, if you haven't seen it, I think it's worth checking out if you like Christmas movies. The main actor, David Hudson, plays Santa Claus, and it's a bit of an origin story. The beginning part is kind of him first becoming Santa Claus, basically, and coming across this factory ran by elves, and they're making toys, but they're kind of waiting for the chosen one to come along, and he kind of comes along, and they're like, "You're the chosen one." He's like, "Well, I'm just a regular guy," and they're like, "No, you're the Santa Claus," and they kind of give him powers, and he kind of becomes this, Santa Claus figure that delivers toys, anyways. So there's a bit of an origin story there, which I like, because I don't think there's enough really good origin stories for Santa Claus. And I find Santa Claus an interesting character, and I think he has an interesting origin. So I don't know, I love the whole origin part of this. And David Hudson is a incredible Santa Claus. He's maybe the best Santa Claus I think I've ever seen. I think better than Tim Allen, better whatever you want to name. Other than like Miracle on 34th Street, that guy was a great Santa Claus too. But he's a really good Santa Claus, I think. And he's not a major actor. He's a good character actor, David Hudson. If you look him up, you're probably like, oh yeah, I've seen this guy before. But it's hard to recognize him because he just looks like, he looks just like Santa Claus. Again, Santa Claus is not a real guy, but if you want to picture what Santa Claus looks like, he looks and acts like this. And just the way he talks, and he's just very jolly. Like, Santa Claus needs to be jolly. Like, J.K. Simmons was a horrible Santa Claus in the Red One movie because he just wasn't, jolly. And like, this one guy, he's like, just seems, he has a great laugh. He just, I don't know. It just is a great portrayal of Santa Claus, in my opinion. Also has Dudley Moore as like the main elf. And this is the first time I think I've seen Dudley Moore in a movie anyways, and he's quite good here. Also, John Lithgow is kind of the villain. He's this toy maker, but he's like this, very rich, CEO of this company, and he's very greedy and all this stuff. And John Lithgow is definitely like overacting the part, but it's so good. Like, Lithgow is great as the kind of, in a sense, very, as you say, chewing the scenery. Every scenery, he's, what? Oh, he's like very overly animated, but it's hilarious. Like, I think his portrayal is so good here. He makes a good villain anyways. But I won't go too much more in the plot, but I think it's a really solid family Christmas movie anyways here. So it's called Santa Claus here, number 96. Number 95, a very obscure musical, but there's a good reason I have it here. And the movie is called The Pirates of Penzance. This came out in 1983, and you might be thinking, what is Pirates of Penzance? Well, it's a musical from Gilbert and Sullivan, so it's a very old kind of school style musical made here in the 80s. And I only know this movie because my high school did this musical when I was a senior in high school, and I was in the musical. I loved doing plays and musicals when I was in high school, and we did it like we had a small school, so we would do 1 year we do a play, next year we do a musical, and then a play. Anyway, so and I was in all the plays and musicals. I loved acting. Anyway, so I was in this musical my senior year, and I was one of the pirates. I was Sam, the lieutenant. He was like second in command of the pirates characters, and I didn't really have any lines, but there's a lot of singing in the musical. I'd say I didn't have like the pirates didn't really have any lines really. You got the Pirate King, he was the captain, whatever, and he was a major character. And then Sam the Pirate was kind of the second guy, but he didn't really have a lot of stuff. But I did have like two moments when we're singing where I'm just singing by myself. So I had like kind of two small solos kind of within a song. I didn't have a full solo song, but there's two songs where I get to sing like a little solo within this. Anyways, so that was like the biggest part I had in it. In fact, the very first song is this pirate song where they're dum ba bum ba bum ba bum. I can still kind of remember. I can't remember the words, but so I remember when I did this musical in high school. It starts with us on stage and we're singing this pirate song. And then I have a little solo, like right at the beginning of the, so I remember being so nervous being behind the curtain and the curtains go up. I'm like, oh God, like, and everybody's watching me and I gotta do this solo song, not solo song, but just this very small part of the end of the song. Anyways, I love doing it anyways. Anyway, so saying all that, of course, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie because, again, not probably a big movie and maybe not even a great movie, but I love it because I got to be in the musical and I have so much good memories of being in the musical in high school. But this, well, the main actor, I wrote him down because he's not a known actor, but the Pirate King is played by Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline is so good in this movie. He's so funny. Love his role as a Pirate King. Angela Lansbury is also in it. Is playing like this kind of pirate lady. And then Linda Ronstadt actually is the romantic lead in there as well. It's a very funny movie though, I think. It does work. I think the music is okay. Not the greatest music, but it is a very funny movie. I think it's still worth a watch if you haven't seen it. Again, I'm not promising like greatness, but I still think it's a lot of fun. And the major song I think is there's this major general, and he has a song about I am a major general, and it's a fun song. It's probably the most well-known song from the musical. There's also these police officers, and they're the funniest part of the whole movie because they're very like Chaplin-esque, like physical comedy, and they have to fight the pirates. The pirates are kind of like the bad guys at the end, and so they call the police, to come defend, this town of this pirates. Anyways, and they're hilarious. I love the police officers. Anyways, say that Pirates of Penzance here at number 95. Number 94, definitely a well-known movie. Probably a movie people would put higher on their list, but this is Full Metal Jacket from 1987. It's a Stanley Kubrick Vietnam War film, and I'm not like the biggest fan of Vietnam War films necessarily. And like I said, a lot of people would probably put this much higher. Again, for me, the first half of this movie I really like. It's all of them going through like boot camp. These new recruits or whatever you want to call them, going through boot camp, and it's all about R. Lee Ermey is the drill sergeant who kind of really made drill sergeant like famous. I mean, he's like the greatest drill sergeant I've ever seen in a movie, and he was really in the army, and he really was a drill sergeant in real life. So he had a lot of authenticity to the character. Because he was the drill sergeant and he acted like a drill sergeant. I mean, he was that character, and he's played that type of character for the rest of his career until he passed away. And he's from the state of Kansas, so fellow Kansan, giving a great performance here. In fact, I thought he should have got nominated. I can't believe he didn't get nominated Best Supporting Actor. He was the star of the movie, in my opinion. But I love the first half. You got Matthew Modine and some other actors. Vincent D'Onofrio, very young Vincent D'Onofrio here, and a very young Matthew Modine are kind of, towards the first half, they're kind of the major characters, and then it goes off. Anyways, first half is just them going through like boot camp. And the very first scene, I love the very first scene where you have Arlie Lemmy, the drill sergeant, walking across these soldiers in the bunks, in the barracks, whatever, in a straight line, and he's just ripping into them. As you've ever seen in movies and TV shows, this just trying to he just goes up to somebody, just starts ripping into them, saying all kinds of horrible stuff. And the kind of horrible stuff he says is just so entertaining. You're like, I can't believe someone would say something like that. And I don't know if they say stuff like that in the Army. They might, and if they do, I'd be like, holy cow, I would not want to be yelled at by a drill sergeant. But the whole first half, I think, is so good. It's the dynamic of Vincent D'Onofrio's character struggling and Ari Lemmy being who he is. A second half is much different. It's them actually in the war, and they're more dealing with the Vietnam War in some senses. And that part, I think, is not as interesting, and it's a little more boring. And it also deals with this. Pretty much the whole second half deals with them being trapped by a sniper, and they have to try to figure out how to take out the sniper who's gotten pinned down. And that's the whole second half of the movie. So it's not that interesting of a second half. The ending's nothing that great. But I still put it in here because that first half, I think, is so good and so entertaining. I definitely would watch this movie just for that first half and probably just not watch the second half. So I'm still going to recommend it if you haven't seen it. Full Metal Jacket. Definitely the best depiction of going through boot camp I think I've ever seen. So that's Full Metal Jacket at number 94 on my list. Number 93, another action movie I came across as a kid, and that is Roadhouse. Which came out in 1989. Not the Jake Gyllenhaal version, of course, which is a really horrible movie, but Patrick Swayze, really great in the lead here. I mean, just iconic Patrick Swayze with the iconic hair. He looks so good in this movie, so cool. This is definitely one of those. I mean, I feel like when I put this list together, I was like, Roadhouse has to be on this list. It's just so 80s action. It's like, you can't get any more 80s than this movie 80s looking, 80s type, I don't know, plot. I don't know, everything is just so 80s, and it's great. It's very campy in some senses, but in a very fun way, I think. And again, I liked it as a kid because there's a lot of action. Patrick Swayze plays this bouncer, and then somebody comes in and is trying to rough him up or something like that, and then he ends up getting in a fight with this other really good fighter, and he like rips his throat out at the end, which is comes out of nowhere. He just rips the guy's throat, and you're like, holy cow! Like, when did he get that ability? Sam Elliott is also in here. Kelly Lynch is the female actress in here, kind of love interest. Yeah, I can't say this is a great movie, but man, if you want to, again, if you're going to watch 80s movie, this has got to be on your list of 80s movies to watch, Roadhouse. Here at number 93 on my list. Number 92, another movie that I had to put on my list because it's just too 80s. I couldn't leave it off. And that is The Breakfast Club here. At number 92, came out in 1985. This is like the quintessential John Hughes type story, who's big in the 80s, made a lot of these great 80s type and 90s type stories. But Breakfast Club is just so 80s because it deals with these, I think maybe 6 kids or so that have to have a Saturday detention. It's all about these kids in a Saturday detention, and they're from different cliques. And it kind of deals with that. I think I liked it more as a kid. And again, I came across this as a kid and really enjoyed it because, I don't know, I guess I kind of like this idea of like these, they were older than me at the time. I was probably younger than a high schooler, but I remember looking at it just going like, oh man, like I love the dynamic of all these different clique members. I mean, you got Jen Nelson's kind of the leather jacket wielding, kind of smoking, troublemaking kid. You have, sorry, I have to look at my list here. Estevez, Emilio Estevez plays more of the jock character. Again, here's Estevez again. Like I said, great actor in the 80s. You had Molly Ringwald is kind of the pretty popular girl, I guess. You had Ali Sheedy was kind of the emo girl. You had, I forget another guy. Michael Anthony Hall is kind of the nerdy character. So I love that you have these different kind of characters with different backgrounds, and they're kind of learning. They become friends. I guess it's all about like people from different backgrounds becoming kind of friends through this. And they're kind of being terrorized by this principal who's put in the detention and kind of treats them terribly. I don't know. It's definitely, again, I don't know if it's a good movie now. I don't know if I'd like that movie so much now, but I had to put it on my list. It's so 80s. It's so iconic to the 80s. And John Hughes was such a big part of the 80s that I would say this is one of my favorite John Hughes style movies. So I had to put it here, number 92, The Breakfast Club. And finishing out my list today at number 91 is Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Yeah. Yeah, you're like, what? Killer Clowns from? It's one. First of all, it's one of the best titles to a movie I've ever seen. Killer Clowns from Outer Space, such a great title. And at first you're like, Killer Clowns, like, what is this? A horror movie? I mean, you would think this is like some kind of horror movie, but then if you watch it, I'd say it's more of a comedy. And it's about these aliens that come to this town and they look like clowns, but the clown costumes are pretty incredible. They're really they're not really realistic looking, so it's like when you see the clowns, you can't take it. Like, clowns can be scary. If they made they wanted to make this scary movie, they could have made like a really scary movie by the way they do the clown makeup. But the clown costumes were kind of goofy, so you couldn't take it seriously. As soon as you see the clowns, you're like, okay, this is not scary. It's really a fun movie. It's really kind of this like guilty pleasure type movie, I think. I think it's worth a watch, because especially with people, I think I would say get some group of, like, I've seen it with my family and I laughed a lot. Really just enjoyed it. Definitely, if you haven't seen it before, like, get some of your friends, watch this movie. I think you'll have a blast. And these clowns, there are these aliens, they're going into town and they're killing the townsfolk, and they're capturing them and like cotton candy and eating them after they like put them in cotton candy and stuff like that. And the funny thing is, like, the way they kill people is just so fun and entertaining and creative. I thought, oh, that's a really fun way. I've never seen someone get killed, and it's just a lot of humor in it too. So it's, again, it's not. I didn't find it gross or scary or anything, but it's just kind of fun, creative, and a lot of the characters are pretty funny as well. There's these two guys, kind of the two loser guys, are constantly trying to get with these chicks, and they kind of show up at the end. You're like, wow, these guys are still alive, and they have a pretty good ending to themselves. But anyways, yeah, it's, again, I'm not saying it's a great movie. Like I said, there's no really, I didn't write down any actors, because there's really nobody famous in this movie. I'm not saying it's good acting. I'm not saying it's a good story. It's just dumb fun. And I had to put it on here because I have a lot of fun with this movie. So, number 91, Killer Klowns from Outer Space. So that is my list for today, my 191. Again, check out Ryan's channel, Real Talks with Ryan. Great channel, good friend of mine. So glad you're doing so well with your channel. Got some merch out, and glad to support you with it. But yeah, tell me if you've seen these movies. If you haven't seen them, well, check them out. Hopefully you do. But yeah, tell me what movies you really like from the 80s period. I'd love to hear your comments on here. And besides that, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for liking it. And thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate it so much. Hope you have